My name is Jenna Brooks, and at 32 I thought I had seen it all until my sister's birthday party turned my world upside down. I walked into the party expecting nothing more than cake and casual chatter. Instead, I was blindsided with public humiliation. Right in front of 30 guests, my father stood up, microphone in hand, and demanded that I hand over the keys to my $3 million penthouse, the home I had worked tirelessly to earn as a birthday gift for my unemployed sister. "It's only fair," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. The room went dead silent, every pair of eyes fixed on me. My heart pounded as I refused. That's when he snapped. His hand struck across my face, the slap so hard that one of my earrings flew across the floor. Gasps echoed through the room. Someone had already raised their phone to record the scene. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I calmly picked up my earring, gave my sister a cold smile, and walked out. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. 30 minutes later, a woman stormed into the party. "You have 5 minutes. Or," she said, her voice like steel. The air grew heavy and everyone exchanged panicked glances, unsure of what would happen next. What came after? You wouldn't believe it. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me, what time is it right now and what city are you watching from? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to know where this story is reaching you. That evening, I stepped into my parents' luxe home in Atlanta for Tara's 35th birthday party. The place screamed wealth: marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a skyline view that could make anyone jealous. My father had gone all out, hiring a private chef and a string quartet with crystal chandeliers casting light over the catered spread. I'd chipped in too, $300 for vintage wine and another $500 for the chef. Not a word of thanks. Instead, my mother breezed past me, fussing over the dessert table like I was invisible. As guests arrived, I scanned the room. My older sister, the guest of honor, floated in, wearing a designer dress, her laughter loud and carefree. My parents beamed, calling her the star of the night despite her being 35 and jobless for years. "She's just finding her path," my mother said to Aunt Nancy, who nodded like it was gospel. Meanwhile, I stood there, the 32-year-old CTO of a tech startup, my penthouse worth $2 million, and felt like a stranger. Dad pulled Tara into a hug, praising her charm, her grace, qualities I apparently lacked because I chose a career over a husband. The comparison started early. "If only you were more like your sister," Mom whispered when I offered to help with the guest list. Less ambition, more warmth. It stung, but I swallowed it. Aunt Nancy chimed in, her voice sharp. "All that tech stuff, does it make you happy, Jenna? Or just rich?" Uncle George laughed, sipping my wine, and said, "She's too busy for a family." Even Cousin Tyler, barely 30, smirked. "What's the point of a fancy job if you're alone?" The room buzzed with their judgment, each comment a jab at my choices. I tried to blend in, making small talk with neighbors and family friends. I smiled at their stories, nodded at their compliments for Tara's free spirit. But the air felt heavy, like I was on trial for daring to succeed. My parents didn't acknowledge my role in the party's budget, didn't mention my promotion last month, didn't care that I'd built a life from scratch. Tara, meanwhile, soaked up the praise, her fiancé Ethan by her side, both of them basking in the spotlight. I caught her eye once, hoping for a flicker of gratitude. She looked away. "You're welcome for the wine," I said under my breath, knowing she wouldn't hear. I moved to the bar, pouring myself a glass of the wine I'd paid for. A family friend, Mrs. Larson, approached her, tone pitying. "You must be so proud of your sister," she said. "She's got such a bright future." I forced a smile, my fingers tight around the glass. Proud of what? Tara hadn't worked a day in years, living off my parents' handouts while I climbed corporate ladders. Yet here she was, the golden child, while I was the outcast for choosing a different path. My chest tightened, but I pushed the hurt down, refusing to let them see me crack. As the quartet played on, Dad raised a glass, toasting Tara's vibrant spirit. The guests clapped, their cheers echoing off the penthouse walls. I stood in the corner, my stomach twisting. I wanted to belong, to feel like part of this family, so I stayed pasting on a smile, shaking hands, laughing at bad jokes. But deep down, I knew this wasn't my place. The way they looked at me like I was too much yet not enough made that clear. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and decided to stick it out. For now. As the birthday cake was cut, my father stood up with a microphone. The room quieted, the string quartet pausing mid-note. Dad's smile was wide, almost theatrical, as he raised his glass. "Tonight we celebrate my daughter's 35th birthday," he said, his voice booming through the penthouse. "And I have an announcement. Jenna, our generous daughter, is gifting her penthouse to Tara to help her start anew." The words hit like a punch. 30 guests turned to me, their eyes expectant, some already clapping. My stomach churned. My penthouse, $2 million earned through years of late nights and coding marathons, was being offered up like a party favor. Tara, my older sister, gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. "Oh, Dad, really?" she said, her voice dripping with surprise. But I caught the flicker in her eyes, the way her lips twitched upward before the gasp. She knew. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. I stood frozen, my wine glass cold in my hand, as the room waited for my response. Dad kept talking, his tone patronizing. "Tara's been struggling jobless for a while now. It's only right for family to step up, right, Jenna?" The guests nodded, murmuring approval, their faces a mix of pity for Tara and expectation for me. My mother joined in, her voice soft but pointed. "Jenna, you've done so well for yourself. Sharing with your sister is the least you can do." Aunt Nancy, seated nearby, leaned forward. "It's a beautiful gesture," she said, her smile tight. "Don't be selfish, dear." Uncle George nodded, his voice gruff. "Family first, Jenna. You don't need that big place all alone." The pressure was suffocating, their words piling on like weights. I glanced at Tara's fiancé, Ethan, who avoided my eyes, sipping his drink. The room felt smaller, the air thick with judgment. I set my glass down, my hands steady, despite the rage building inside. "No," I said, my voice clear, cutting through the murmurs. The guests froze, their applause faltering. Dad's smile vanished. "What did you say?" he asked, his tone sharp. I straightened, meeting his gaze. "I'm not giving up my penthouse. I worked for it. Every dollar, every late night, every pitch meeting, that's mine. Tara's struggles aren't my burden." The words hung in the air, raw and unapologetic. Tara's face crumpled, but I saw the calculation behind her teary eyes. She wasn't hurt. She was angry I'd called her bluff. Mom stepped forward, her voice rising. "Jenna, how can you say that? Your sister needs help." Aunt Nancy gasped, clutching her necklace. "That's so cold," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Uncle George shook his head, muttering, "Ungrateful." The guests began to whisper, their voices a low hum of shock and disapproval. A woman I barely knew, Mrs. Carter, leaned toward her husband, saying, "She's always been too independent." Another guest, a family friend, added, "Poor Tara, stuck with a sister like that." The judgment was palpable, each word a needle pricking my resolve. I kept my chin up, refusing to crumble. "I've supported this family," I said, my voice steady but louder now. "I paid for half this party, wine, chef, everything. But my home? That's not up for grabs." The room grew quieter, the whispers sharpening. Dad's face reddened, his grip on the microphone tightening. Tara sniffled, dabbing her eyes, but I wasn't fooled. She'd known this was coming, had probably rehearsed that tearful look. Mom's eyes darted between us, her expression a mix of panic and anger. "Jenna, you're embarrassing us," she hissed. But I didn't back down. I'd spent years proving myself, building a life they refused to respect. This was my line in the sand. The tension crackled, the guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats. A few pulled out their phones, their fingers hovering over screens, ready to capture whatever came next. I felt their eyes, their judgment, but also a strange sense of freedom. For the first time that night, I wasn't trying to fit in. I was standing up for myself, and it felt right. But the air was electric, charged with the weight of what I'd just done. Dad stepped closer, his jaw tight, and I braced myself for what was coming. The room went quiet as I stood my ground. My father's face twisted, his eyes narrowing to slits. "You're defying me," he barked, stepping closer, the microphone still clutched in his hand. Before I could respond, his hand swung fast and heavy, striking my cheek with a sharp crack. The pain seared through me, my head snapping to the side. My pearl earring flew off, skittering across the floor, glinting under the chandelier's light. Gasps erupted from the 30 guests, their murmurs replaced by stunned silence. I touched my cheek, the heat spreading under my fingers, but I didn't flinch. A young man, one of Tara's fiancé's friends, fumbled with his phone, the red dot of a live stream blinking on his screen. "This is unreal," he muttered, angling the camera toward me. The other guests stared, some frozen, others whispering furiously. Tara's eyes widened, her hand covering her mouth, but I saw no tears, just a flicker of satisfaction. Mom stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Jenna, apologize to your father," she demanded, as if I'd been the one to strike. I ignored her. My gaze locked on the earring now resting near a table leg. I bent down, my knees steady, and picked up the pearl, its smooth surface cool against my palm. Standing, I faced Tara, who stood beside Dad, her expression a mix of feigned shock and smugness. "Happy birthday, Tara." I said, my voice low but clear, each word deliberate. I slipped the earring into my pocket and turned toward the door. The guests parted their whispers, trailing me like a shadow. "She's walking out," one said. After that, another hissed. I didn't look back. The weight of their judgment couldn't touch me anymore. In the hallway, the penthouse's heavy door clicked shut behind me, muffling the chaos inside. My cheek still throbbed, but my heart was steady. I pulled out my phone and dialed my best friend, Kayla Morgan. She answered on the first ring. "Jenna, you okay?" she asked, her voice sharp with worry. I leaned against the wall, the marble cold through my dress. "Dad just slapped me," I said, my tone flat, but my hands shaking. "He demanded I give Tara my penthouse. I said no, and he..." My voice caught the sting of betrayal sharper than the slap. Kayla's breath hitched. "He did what?" she snapped. In front of everyone, I nodded, though she couldn't see me, and recounted the scene, the public demand, Tara's fake tears, Mom's accusations, the guests' stares. Kayla listened, her silence heavy with anger. "You don't deserve this," she said finally. "You've carried that family for years, and this is how they repay you." I closed my eyes, her words anchoring me. She paused, then added, "You need to call Margaret. Your grandmother will shut this down." I opened my eyes, a spark of resolve igniting. Kayla was right. Grandma Margaret, my grandmother, had always seen through my family's games. At 80, she held the family's financial strings, her sharp mind unyielding. "Do it," Jenna, Kayla urged. "She'll back you." I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over Margaret's name. The hallway was silent, the distant hum of the party barely audible. I pressed the call button, my heart pounding but certain. My fingers trembled, but I felt a strength I hadn't known before. The line rang once, twice, then clicked. Jenna, Grandma's voice was steady, expectant. I took a breath, ready to tell her everything. 30 minutes later, the apartment door swung open. Grandma Margaret strode in, her silver cane tapping the floor with commanding rhythm. At 80, she still carried herself like a queen, her sharp eyes cutting across the room. The guests froze, whispers dying instantly. I stood at the back, my cheek still burning, watching as her presence swallowed the noise into silence. "Daniel," she said, her voice low but edged with steel, "explain why you dared to lay a hand on my granddaughter." My father's face drained of color, the microphone nearly slipping from his grip. The room held its breath. Margaret didn't wait for an answer. She raised her cane, pointing toward the floor. "You have 5 minutes to find the earring. If not, I'll handle this myself." A jolt rippled through the guests. They exchanged uneasy glances. Tara dropped to her knees, scrambling across the floor, her designer dress dragging. My mother clutched my father's arm, eyes wide with panic. "Mother, please," she stammered. But Margaret lifted her hand, silencing her. Aunt Nancy and Uncle George stood rigid, their earlier smugness gone. I watched, my heart steady yet heavy, as Margaret turned to address the crowd. "Jenna is the only one I trust," she declared, her voice carrying through the room. "She built her life with her own hands, no excuses, no handouts. Unlike some of you." Her eyes speared my father, then my mother, then Tara, who froze mid-search, her face twisting. "Daniel, you run a company but can't run your family fairly. Susan, you coddled Tara into uselessness. And Tara," her voice dropped not with kindness, "you've taken enough from your sister." Gasps erupted, phones lifted, capturing every word. Margaret stepped forward, her cane tapping rhythmically. "I've made my decision," she announced, her gaze brushing mine. "I am rewriting my will. Everything, my estate, my investments, my properties, will go to Jenna." Chaos broke loose. My mother let out a strangled cry, hands flying to her mouth. "You can't!" she screamed, her voice cracking. Tara collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, her tears no longer calculated but desperate. My father stood rigid, jaw clenched tight, while Aunt Nancy whispered, "This is outrageous," to Uncle George, who nodded, pale as stone. The guests buzzed, shock rippling across the room. Mrs. Larson clutched her purse, muttering, "She's leaving it all to Jenna." Another guest, a colleague of Tara's, shook her head. "Tara's finished now." The string quartet stood, frozen instruments silent. I stayed quiet, my hands clasped, absorbing the weight of Margaret's words. She wasn't only defending me, she was tearing down years of lies. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small nod, fierce yet proud. Tara's sobs grew louder. "Grandma, please," she begged, voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this." Margaret's expression didn't falter. "You meant every bit of it," she replied coldly. "You knew your father's plan, and you let it happen." My father stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Mother, you're overreacting. Jenna's fine. She's strong." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Strong because she had to be," she snapped. "No thanks to you." My mother tried again, her tone pleading. "We're a family, Mother. Don't tear us apart." But Margaret turned away, her cane striking firmly as she walked toward me. The 5 minutes slipped by. The earring hidden in my pocket was never found. Margaret never asked. She knew. "This family has failed, Jenna," she declared, her voice echoing. "You've shamed her, used her, and even struck her. No more." Guests shifted uncomfortably, some averting their eyes, others still recording. The air grew thick, the glamour of the party shattered. I stood still, chest tight but resolve unshaken. Margaret's words were my shield. Her decision, my lifeline. The chaos, my mother's panic. Tara's tears, my father's silence, felt distant, like a storm I no longer had to endure. That night in my own penthouse, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications flooded my screen, the live stream from Tara's party going viral. Comments poured in, condemning my father's actions and questioning the Carter family's morals. "Disgusting behavior," one user wrote. "Jenna deserves better," another posted. The video had racked up thousands of views, each share amplifying the public's outrage. I sat on my couch, the city skyline glowing through my windows, and scrolled through the posts, my chest tight with a mix of vindication and exhaustion. My phone pinged again, a message from a mutual friend. Ethan's family was reconsidering the wedding, shaken by the scandal. "They're worried about Tara's baggage," the message read. "The drama's too much." I set the phone down, my mind racing. Tara's engagement, her one anchor, was slipping away because of her own family's actions. Part of me felt a flicker of pity, but it faded fast. She'd stood by while Dad humiliated me, her silence as damning as his hand. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I opened it to find my father and mother standing there, their faces drawn. Dad's shoulders slumped. His usual confidence gone. "Jenna, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. Mom nodded, her eyes red. "We're sorry," She added, her tone pleading. The pressure to support Tara, it got out of hand. I crossed my arms, my jaw tight. Their words felt hollow, rehearsed. You think an apology fixes this? I asked, my voice steady but cold. You demanded my home, then struck me in front of everyone. Dad flinched, but Mom pressed on. We're family, Jenna. We made a mistake. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. Your mistake cost me my trust, I said. You chose Tara over me again and again. I'm done. Dad's face reddened, but he didn't argue. Mom reached out her hand, trembling, but I stepped back. Please, Jenna, she whispered. I closed the door, their silhouettes fading through the frosted glass. My heart pounded, but I felt lighter, like a weight had lifted. I wasn't their pawn anymore. Kayla arrived an hour later, her expression fierce as she hugged me. You did the right thing, she said, settling onto the couch. They don't get to walk back what they did. I nodded, pouring us both coffee. The internet's tearing them apart, I said, showing her the posts. Kayla scanned them, her lips curving slightly. Good. Let them face the consequences. She set the phone down, her gaze steady. You're stronger than they'll ever be, Jenna. Cut them off for good. Her words sank in, solidifying my decision. I'd spent years trying to earn their respect, but no more. My phone chimed again, this time an email from Grandma Margaret. I opened it, my breath catching. Jenna, it began. My decision stands. The will is being redrafted, naming you as my sole heir. You've proven your worth not just to me, but to yourself. Stay strong. I read it twice, the words grounding me. Margaret's trust was a lifeline, a validation of everything I'd fought for. Kayla squeezed my hand, her smile warm. She's got your back, she said. I nodded, my eyes stinging but my heart firm. The family I'd clung to was gone, but I was ready to move forward alone. I felt a quiet peace knowing I'd chosen myself at last. 3 months later, I stood in my penthouse watching Atlanta's skyline. The city lights sparkled, a quiet reminder of everything I'd built. Last week, I'd been promoted to Chief Technology Officer at my company, my name etched on a glass award for innovation in AI. The ceremony had been packed, colleagues cheering as I accepted the honor, my heart swelling with pride. I'd worked for this night's coding until dawn pitches that won million-dollar contracts. This was my victory, earned through sweat and determination, not handed to me. News of my family's downfall trickled in through mutual contacts. Tara's engagement had collapsed. Ethan and his family walked away, unwilling to tie themselves to her tarnished reputation. The viral livestream had painted the Carters as toxic, and the city's elite shunned them. My father's business dealings faltered, clients pulling back after his public disgrace. My mother's social circle dwindled, her charity events now sparsely attended. I felt no joy in their ruin, only a quiet acceptance. Their choices had led them here, not mine. I'd severed all ties with them. No calls, no texts, no reconciliation. The night I'd shut the door on my parents' apology was the last I'd spoken to them. Their betrayal, demanding my home siding with Tara, the sting of my father's hand, had drawn a line I wouldn't cross again. My phone, once flooded with their messages, now stayed silent. I'd blocked their numbers, my resolve unshaken. The family I'd known was gone, replaced by a clarity I hadn't expected. Kayla had become my rock. We met weekly, her laughter filling my home as we planned trips or debated tech trends. My colleagues, too, had stepped up, inviting me to dinners and brainstorming sessions, their respect genuine. One evening, my teammate Sarah had raised a glass, saying, "To Jenna, who proves hard work pays off." I'd smiled, the warmth of their support wrapping around me like a shield. These were my people now, the ones who saw my worth without strings attached. Grandma Margaret remained my fiercest ally. She'd finalized the transfer of her estate properties, investments, everything to me. Over lunch at her favorite cafe, she'd handed me the legal papers, her eyes gleaming. "You're the only one I trust," she said, her voice firm. "You've got my spirit, Jenna." I'd hugged her, my throat tight, knowing her faith in me was worth more than any fortune. She called often, sharing stories of her youth, her wisdom grounding me as I navigated my new role. Looking out at the skyline, I thought about the lessons carved into me. Personal boundaries were sacred, a line no one, not even family, could cross without consequence. I'd learned to guard my space, my achievements, my heart. True family wasn't defined by blood, but by respect, by those who lifted you up instead of tearing you down. Kayla's loyalty, my colleagues' camaraderie, Margaret's trust, these were the bonds that mattered. I'd spent years seeking approval from people who never valued me. Now I valued myself. I turned from the window, my award glinting on the shelf. The penthouse, once a battleground, was now my sanctuary. I'd made it mine, not just with my name on the deed, but with the life I'd built. The past 3 months had shown me who I could be: strong, independent, unapologetic. I picked up my phone, texting Kayla about our next meetup. As I hit send, a calm settled over me. The Carter's drama was behind me. My future, bright and unshackled, stretched ahead.